throwing shit at the pilot. Niggas be broken, be sobbing, but still talking shit like they violent.
Yes, I said it. Isaiah Thomas is the most underrated player in the league. Now, obviously, I do have some bias towards Isaiah being a Celtics fan, but in a non-biased outlook, Isaiah Thomas has been overlooked at ever since the start. Now, I know a popular most underrated player pick is Damian Lillard. Now, here's the reason why I feel he's not underrated anymore. Damian Lillard has his attention now. Last year, yes, he was underrated, but this year, I mean, he got ads with Adidas, State Farm, and every time you talk about the best point guards in the league, you will get roasted if you leave Damian Lillard off. Look, here's my take on it. How are you the most underrated when every person I ask says you're underrated? I mean, yes, that means that a lot of people say you're underrated, but doesn't that mean that everyone sees what you're doing? But that's not the case with Isaiah Thomas ever since he was drafted. I mean, come on. The last pick in the draft? You're telling me right now, based on how he's playing, that there's 59 players better than Isaiah Thomas in that draft? There's not even 20 players better than Isaiah Thomas in the league right now. Nonetheless, the draft, that is the definition of underrated. At least Lillard was picked 6th overall. At least guys like Giannis and Jimmy were picked in the 1st round. This guy was the last pick of the last round, and to go as far as he has, it's just insane. I mean, if you've ever played 2K, most of the time, people just flat out don't even sign their 2nd round draft picks. Nonetheless, the last pick of that round, even when he got to Sacramento, he still was underrated. IT went from averaging an already impressive 11 points and 4 assists in his rookie season, which got him to the all-rookie 2nd team as the last pick in the draft, to averaging 20 points and 6 assists. But even still, the Kings decided to trade him to the Suns for who? Alex Oriaki. Who, you may ask? I mean, I'm not even gonna take the time to look it up. No offense to the homie Alex, but the point is, you were not worth a 20 points per game scorer regardless of his pick and regardless of his height. But that's not where it ends. Now, the Suns had a 3-headed monster of Thomas, Dragic, and Bledsoe. So even though IT was basically putting up the same stats coming off the bench with less minutes, the Suns traded Isaiah Thomas to the Boston Celtics for Marcus Thornton and Cleveland's 2016 first round draft pick, and man did Phoenix lose out on this deal. Just in the 21 games that Isaiah Thomas played for the Celtics in 2015, he averaged 19 points and 5 assists on 0 starts and instantly became the team's #1 scoring option. That's a per 36 of 26 points and 7.5 assists. The Celtics went from a team destined to go to the lottery again to the 7th seed in the East ever since the trade. IT even finished 2nd in 6th Man of the Year voting that year, basically just for 21 games of play. And then the year after, Thomas stepped it on one more notch, averaging 22 points and 6 assists, leading the Celtics to the 5th seed in the East. But, you know, they had a 4-way tie for 3rd, and they held that spot for most of the season, so to me, he really led them to the 3rd seed. He got voted into the All-Star team for the first time, and then went on to almost single-handedly bringing the Celtics back from a 0-2 lead against the Atlanta Hawks. Can I remind you that this is a 5'9" point guard who was really on the brink of going undrafted to being the face of arguably the most historic franchise in the league that was traded for the homie Alex Oriaki and for Marcus Thornton on 2 separate occasions? Can I remind you that? And now that brings us to today, where Isaiah Thomas is averaging 27.7 points and 6 assists, leading the storied franchise that is the Boston Celtics to the 3rd seed once again in the Eastern Conference. 27.7 points. I mean, do I have to put that in perspective again? I don't think so. Just think about what I just said and imagine the fact that the last pick of the 2011 draft is averaging more points than LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, Stephen Curry, Kawhi Leonard, basically any person you can think of outside of James Harden, Boogie Cousins, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook. That is insane. Like, there really is an argument to be made about who's better, the last pick of the 2011 draft or the first pick of the 2011 draft. Like, just the fact that an argument can be made about who's better on any level makes him that underrated, and people still don't give him recognition. Let's face it, most likely Kyrie's gonna start for the East, and I have a feeling that Wall might even get more votes than IT. Hell, I have a feeling Lowry might get more votes than Isaiah Thomas. And the fact that that may be a reality truly frightens me. If Isaiah was even 6 feet tall, he'd probably be averaging 30. But he's basically already doing that at 3 inches shorter. Like, this man is the real deal. I mean, he's actually in the top 10 for the MVP ladder right now. Come on, bro. Just think about this with no context. A player went from last pick in the draft to being on the all-rookie second team, to being a 20 points per game scorer, to being traded for no names, to being a 6th man of the year candidate, to being an all-star, to being the face of arguably the most storied franchise in the league, to leading his team to the 3rd best record in the East, to dropping 28 points per game, and arguably being an MVP candidate while being the shortest player in the NBA. So basically, last pick to an MVP candidate. So tell me again why he's not the most underrated player in the league. Alright, so as I'm editing this video, the NBA All-Star voting actually came out, like the first round. And just to look at how underrated Isaiah Thomas is, let me name you some players that have more votes than Isaiah Thomas. And now, let me remind you what the All-Star game is. It's awarding the best players in the league this season. Okay, so it doesn't matter what you did last season, it's all about what you're doing this season. And we're talking about a guy, again, 5'9", averaging 28 points, 6 assists, scored 52 on the Heat, leading his team to the 3rd seed in his conference. Let me put that in perspective from the last pick in the draft. And let me tell you the players that have more votes than Isaiah Thomas. Joel Embiid, Kevin Love, Klay Thompson, Dwayne Wade, Kyrie Irving. Yes, I know Kyrie Irving is a baller, but 300,000 more people voted for Kyrie Irving than Isaiah Thomas. The difference this year is not that big. And let me talk about Zaza Pachulia here for a second, man. This is why people shouldn't vote for the All-Star game. Zaza Pachulia, he would be a starter right now. But let me go back to Isaiah Thomas. Most of the names I just mentioned do not deserve more votes than Isaiah Thomas this year. Flat out. But with that being said, now I'm out. Peace.